Okay. So remember, you should not be on your computer. We should probably just turn it around so that it is facing the front. Okay. Do you guys want it off, or do you want off? Okay. All right, eyeballs. Okay. I'm taking notes as well. Okay. You have three things you're doing. 3 important things that shocked you or that you learned. 2 important statistics and 1 question. Okay, you're going to do that for each group. I should not see you on your computer. If I do see you misbehaving or not being respectful to the group presenting, I will mark down your participation points for today. All right? So please give them the respect they deserve. Go ahead, group 1. Go ahead and hop up there. You got it!
Apartheid in South Africa was a policy or system of segregation or discrimination based on the color of your skin.
Apartheid history in 1948, a all-white national party came to power in South Africa. Non-white South Africans were forced to live in separate areas and use separate public facilities. Laws remained in effect for about 50 years.
Right, some of the laws were like different acts. So one was the Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act. One was the Population Registration Act, and that called for people to be like registered according to their racial group, so they'd get treated like according to what they were. And then Group Areas Act, they had to be physically separated, like in urban areas. And the Promotion of Bantu Self-Government Act made people actually have to live in completely different areas than other races.
So these are like the statistics. The life expectancy of a newborn is between 50 and 52 years old. This is like what they kind of lived in. And then at the height of the apartheid, the whites owned a ratio of 15 times more than the blacks. All progress that was done to eradicate poverty is being undone. The amount of African Americans in poverty decreased until 2011, when spiked again. Spiked. So we're excited.
Okay. Any questions?
Can you go back a slide? I didn't get through fast. I didn't get enough time to get through fast.
Which slide do you want them to get to? Justin, when you say the life expectancy of a newborn, what does that mean?
That means like, a baby, I guess. I told you.
Well, like an African?
Yeah.
Okay.
That seems high. Good.
Yeah, it might have been more he looked up the research. So what did you guys, I have a question. What did you guys, obviously something like this happened in the United States with segregation, right?
Yeah.
What similarities did you see or differences between apartheid and the United States form of segregation?
I just watched The Help, so I mean, like a lot of things, like, compare to that, like, in that movie, like, they lived in separate houses, maybe, like, another apartheid, which wasn't forced, but it was chosen that way, is that there was often black neighborhoods that people would live in, that was, like, separate from the fancy, rich
So it wasn't
homes.
forced segregation.
It was almost chosen because of the hate that was across the two races.
So why do you think like there's still segregation today? Because there's still black neighborhoods, white neighborhoods, Hispanic neighborhoods. Because besides running.
Wait, what was the question?
So how come you think that there are still segregated neighborhoods in the United States today? Like there are white neighborhoods, black neighborhoods, Hispanic neighborhoods, white neighborhoods, segregation. No, that's looking at.
I feel like you kind of just said it. There's still the white change around in this kind of stuff. You know, stuff around.
So you think it's just a choice that you're more comfortable with?
Yeah, probably.
Did you guys find why apartheid came into power?
Yeah, it was a white national party in 1949 in South Africa.
Yes. And they actually, their rationalization for it was that they would be more productive as a country to split the races because it was bringing them down. Which, in reality, what were they just trying to do? They were trying to say it was going to be more productive for the country, but why would they separate all the races?
So it was less productive?
So what?
It was less productive?
Just power.
Okay.
Alright, does anyone else have any questions for them? They want to ask? Okay, group 4 is next. So that is Sharpeville Massacre and Severe Rise. Okay, kiddos, really good job on maintaining eye contact. Make sure that you don't go as quickly next time, and when you're reading your slides, you don't have to read directly. But you can have a conversation with your audience. That's fine. I just want you to, I wanted to see, are you fist bumping me?
Yes.
What did I do? Oh, you know what, I'm just awesome. Okay. Wait till I get back to my spot, guys.
Which group is this?
This is group 4, Sharpeville Massacre and Toledo Riots.
No.
Whoa.
Alright, are you ready? Oh, I know it's still time to get something up.
Yeah.
Hurry up, Noah!
I'm sorry.
Alright, go ahead, guys.
The Sharpeville Massacre. So Sharpeville was a black suburb. It was about 50 miles from Johannesburg, which is like a big city in South Africa. I think it's the capital, not 100% sure. But there was no protesting. They were one of the first townships actually in South Africa. But there was no protesting all through the 50s until I think it was right in the early 60s. And it was the Sharpeville Massacre, which was the first protest that ever occurred, actually. But Robert, I don't know how to say his last name, something like that. But he actually wrote a letter to the police and was like, "Hey, we're going to be having a protest. It will be unarmed. It will be nonviolent, but we're going to be having this protest." And he told them this is going to be happening. Because he wanted them to know so that it wasn't so they didn't think that they were going to be violent. Lo and behold, that didn't actually do anything.
So what really happened basically was about 7,000 Africans gathered around the police station, and somehow one of the 300 police officers got knocked down or something, and so people gathered around to see, and then the police officers just opened fire out of nowhere. Without any command or a warning shot above the crowd. 69 people were killed and 186 were wounded by gunshots. That's 65. They were all running away.
Did you guys hear what Erica just said? 186 wounded, 600 people dead because they were running away. They were shot in the back.
I'm sorry, how many people?
186.
So were they a threat if they're running away?
Alright, graphics and videos. This is a really bad picture of when the police opened fire and started attacking the crowd. And this is...
Hold on, can you go back so I don't think anyone had time to read?
It was basically the same information as what Eric had.
Oh, okay.
It's really just the
So Riley, will you press start on my mouse because my board is super misaligned and I can't.
Is it going to be like super loud?
If you turn on the volume on the right, you see where the glowing light is on the thing next to the board. So that you can turn to the left just a little bit.
I might need to turn that like way up because it's late.
Africa. 69 people lost their lives that day when police opened fire on a crowd of black anti-apartheid protesters. The white minority government is gone, but black South Africans living in townships like Sharpeville say they're still struggling.
It was 1960 when thousands of black demonstrators gathered in Sharpeville in protest against the apartheid laws that forced them to carry passbooks. Police retaliated by opening fire on the protesters without warning. 69 people were killed and 180 were injured. The Sharpeville massacre triggered an international outcry and sparked more protests within the country. It also marked a turning point in South African political history and is now marked as Human Rights Day. The shock of the massacre resonates today. Samuel Shabalala still lives in Sharpeville and was an eyewitness to the killings.
Now we find the 69 people, most of people are saying, we see the ambulances are coming here. The police are still around in that. After hours, about so 6:30, the last Prime Minister at that time, Hendrik Verwoerd, he spoke in the radio. He told he thanks the police if they are shoot these people.
Today the township of Sharpeville outside of Johannesburg still has its battles. They are for sanitation, safety and basic living conditions.
Actually, service delivery lapha ayikho right ngempela because imikhuku kudala yamapha ethina siyifunda imikhuku emiaba. Abantwana bayachase izimoto ngoba le ndawo sihleli kuyo iduzane nesikuntiri. Ithoilet esihlala kuzo zona ayiziwezi.
Earlier this week, demonstrators in the township north of Johannesburg built barricades to protest the bad living conditions. They were fired on with rubber bullets by police. But the protesters' gripe isn't against a white minority government, it's with the ANC, whom they accuse of making them wait 16 years for proper housing. Jenny Lavelle, World News Australia.
Nice. This is the Soweto riots. The protest was led by school children in June 1976. More than 20,000 people took part in the protests. Began in Soweto, then spread nationally throughout the country. And the riots were caused by, and for some reason it's off the screen.
You can see it on the computer.
Can I scroll down? Oh.
Well,
it's just what it's called. It's the Africans Medium Degree of 1974.
What was the African Medium
degree? Forgot. I can look it up, but I think I'm logged out now. Oh. You want me to look it up?
You put it on slides, so you probably should tell us what it is.
Well, okay. Fine.
Let's do it real quick. I Google stuff for you guys all the time. Like home stickers, yeah, I think that's how. Don't do it.
Well, I don't think you just need it. Yeah.
Tell us something.
It was basically where they were taught in English and they didn't taught in English. Like, it was 50% English and 50% something else.
Oh, okay. Here's what it was. So, when the Dutch came over, they spoke Afrikaans, and that was a language that only the whites spoke. And the children in the Bantu schools, which the Bantu education kids might get to, they spoke English in their tribal language, which was one of the others. The party in power, the white party in power, ruled that all black children needed to be taught in Afrikaans. So they were protesting because they were taking away their language and making them learn the language of their oppressors. Does that make sense? So that's why they were writing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna put my side.
Encore! What's that, Ryan?
I said to put my work cited in my slides.
That's fine. Alright, hold on. Anyone have any questions for them?
No.
What's up? Alright, group 3, which is geography and historic information.
Yeah.
Would you title it?
Like, yeah, you title it.
Oh, did you type Africa?
Yes.
Sure. Close enough.
Wait, what? What do you mean close enough?
This is group 3 there, the geographical and historical information. Please be respectful of your classmates. Can you skip back so we can see?
Huh?
Can you skip back a little bit?
So, this is the background information. South Africa was a very hot and humid place that was surrounded by desert. South Africa was colonized by the Europeans in 1652. South Africa was known for its gold lust, maybe had a lot of gold. When the Europeans figured out about the wealth that was hidden inside South Africa, that's when they decided to colonize and take over.
South Africa is more than 6,000 miles away from Europe, North America, and Asia. Today, Africa is a very fertile land with many resources and tourist attractions. South Africa is bordered by Namibia to the northwest, by Botswana and Zimbabwe to the north, and by Mozambique and Swaziland to the northeast and northwest, east and
With European colonization in 1652, South Africans were forced into labor. The Dutch first marked their permanence by building a 5-pointed stone castle on the shores of the bay, a structure that continues to dominate the center of Cape Town. There was an estimate of around 9 to 15 million people that were transferred from African homes to European colonization possession, and the changes brought on African societies by the imposition of European colonial rule occurred in quick succession. In fact, it was spread with which change occurred that set the colonial era apart from earlier periods in the South Africa.
Hold on. So, Nathan, what do you mean when you say there was an estimate of 9 to 15 million people that were transferred from African homes to European colonization possessions?
So, like, people were, like, transferred out of their homes to, like, European, like, to work as, like, slaves.
Yes, so they were brought as slaves back to Europe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then from 1884 to 1914, the Europeans began taking over Africa. And then before they went, the European nations met to agree on rules about the colonization, and they decided on things that they could do in places they could take over. And then they ended up calling Africa the Dark Continent because Africa was not a place that was known to them. And they had heard rumors about the people inhabiting Africa. And then this is a quote from this, one of the sources that I saw. This is, they got mixed up with the more sinister idea of Darkest Africa, a place where the inhabitants were savage and brutal. And then near the end in 1914, the only fully independent places in Africa were Liberia and Ethiopia.
So hold up, Alex. Isn't it funny that all the European nations would meet and agree on how to colonize Africa, but didn't talk to Africans on it? The people they were colonizing, they didn't, consider. Okay, so how did the Dutch Europeans take over South Africa specifically? Did you guys get into that at all?
I can't see.
It's kind of pointless to tell us now about that.
Lily, can you go back to some slides and you can start showing?
Sure. Which one?
Okay, so the Afrikaners that they talk about in the book in the Afrikaan language, that was when the Dutch colonized. So they were known as the Afrikaners, and they were the party that came into power in South Africa that drew up all those Advanced Education Acts, that drew up the apartheid laws, okay? So it wasn't that, it was basically colonization. You guys have learned about this in history, the colonization of different areas of the world. And we talked a little bit in class yesterday about how people colonized, how this country's colonized. They dehumanized the people who lived in the colonies that they took over. And you can see it in that quote that I think on Alex's slide that she has, where it talks about them being brutal and savage. It's a lot easier to take over a group of people if you dehumanize them as savage than acknowledge them as equal people. Does anyone have any questions for them? Alright. Oh, no question. I think he's confused as to which date is talking specifically about South Africa. Alright, group 2, you're up. That's you, kiddo.
You look great. Break the leg.
Break a leg. Alright, this is Bantu education. Remember, guys, if you are talking during someone's presentation, I write your name down and take off a point every time you talk. No. This is group 2, Bantu education.
So the Bantu Education Act was a part of the government system of the apartheid. In 1953, the South African government passed the Bantu Education Act. This gave the South African government power to structure the education for the South African children and kind of separate the black South Africans from the white ones, the white South Africans. And it ingrained an apartheid-framed education system that was predicted to impede the advancement of the black children.
So basically,
Great, can you pause real quick? Can you go back? Sorry, buddy. You have to use the keyword. Go back to it. Haley, when you said ingrained in a apartheid-framed education system that was predicted to impede the advancement of black children, what do you mean?
Like, it was, what I read is, it was hoped that they wouldn't go like as far ahead in education as the whites would, so they would kind of know less and be not as smart.
So they purposely created an education system that would not allow the black children to become as educated as the white children.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is the government that did that. Just keep in mind the context for this. Alright, go ahead.
Okay, so the first picture is a picture of the school boycott in 1955, and it did not succeed because the government threatened to expel the kids if they didn't go back to school. And then the second picture is a picture of a police dragging a protester that got shot in the march in 1976. And then, that shows the conditions of the school and how they had to fit so many people in a small room, and they're required to instruct 1,650 minutes per week, which is 3.5 hours a day.
So with the children that were there, they kind of knew that they were getting lower levels of education than white children. So for the longest time, how they were saying, I thought they were taught different languages. So they knew that, and they knew that within, like they knew that since they weren't getting the right education, that they couldn't really be successful with like jobs, or if they wanted to move out of the continent, like if they wanted to move to America or just somewhere else, that they wouldn't be able to get the right amount of education for the jobs that they needed. And since the students did know about that, they eventually started boycotting and started leaving schools and to try to get the right education they needed, or just trying to get the same levels of education.
Alright, so the students learned they basically learned of white supremacy, which was basically saying that whites were more superior than blacks were, and that they needed to know this fact so that they could move on going better. The students, they basically damaged their culture, what was learned or taught in these schools, because the teachers were just I guess the teachers were really brutal with the kids and how they taught their education. And at the schools, they promoted myths and a lot of racial stereotypes. And then, so basically what this was saying is that black children needed parental supervision from a white adult, which is basically trying to keep the kids in check, kind of. But, and then at that time, they were taught of like the culture and how things were running, which basically was white supremacy and that whites were superior to blacks. And that was mainly what I found. That was mostly what was taught. There weren't very much like actual education going around. There was a lot about white supremacy and what was going on in the culture.
Anyone have any questions?
Further.
Have you guys heard of systemic racism? Yeah. So you guys know what racism type this is. When it's coming from a system, that means that it's an organizational issue. This is like a key piece of systemic racism and systemic oppression, right? It's not just a person to person, it's an entire government system keeping someone oppressed and not allowing them to grow, right? Think of how much they were paying them to become laborers. They were paying them like squat, right? To come into white South Africa and basically be really low paid slaves, in essence. So in order to keep that structure, things like this were put into place so no one ever questioned it. That's why we learned like critical thinking issues like this, so that you guys have the ability to question things as they are. Okay, so last group, let's go ahead.
That's us.
That would be you.
Let's go.
You're cool.
Grant, make sure you watch this.
I will watch it.
Just Grant?
Yeah,
Alright, no one else but Grant.
everyone close your eyes.
Oh, what are you guys? Apartheid? Oh, Alexandra. Alright. Alright, last group. Sarah Alexandra, which is the ghetto that Johannes lives in.
Okay, so we did Alexandra.
So Alexandra, usually abbreviated to Alex, the township in the Gauteng province of South Africa. It forms part of the city of Johannesburg. It is very different from its neighboring town, though. They basically lived in trash. Their food and water supply was limited, also.
Okay, ghettos and violence. So Alexandra is labeled as a ghetto. For those who don't know what a ghetto is, it's a part of a city, especially in some area occupied by a minority of groups or groups. Another definition of the word is put in or restrict to isolate or segregate area or groups. So like they would just like segregate. It's like 4 basic groups: colored, blacks, whites, and Indians. And use that segregation to like have more control over everyone. And census and the Apartheid Act, there's like became more violence in that, and abuse and political abuse, and let's see. Distinctions, political and criminal contact was often blurred, which led to more abuse. So yeah.
Alexandria is a small 1 square mile place in Johannesburg. It's located in South Africa. And that's South Africa, and that's about how it looks.
That's the city now.
So these are some pictures of what it looks like now. It was probably like worse back then. I searched all these pictures up, and so like this is what it really looked like. And then their food situation was like they basically starved to death because they like had to dig in trash and then to get their food. And their huts were like really small, and yeah.
So, do you guys see all the trash? So the white South Africans would take their trash to Alexandria and the other ghettos and dump them in the middle of their ghettos. So the ghettos were literally their trash sites. And so you can see the kids, they were so poor that they would go through the trash for food and find like half-eaten peanut butter jellies. And he describes this in the book and is saying how shocked he is. He doesn't understand why they throw away so much food. Right? Like there's full sandwiches. He's like, why would someone throw this away? And you'll get to that in the book of them like literally dumpster diving for food, eating things like that, to the point where if you see photos of starving African children where their stomachs are bloated, right, from malnutrition, his family goes through that. And remember, this is photos from recently. This isn't the photos from 40 years ago. You can see the shacks and what these people lived in. If you remember in the first chapter, he describes us sleeping on a cardboard box. Like, that was his mattress, was a cardboard box. Okay, so is that it, Liz?
Yeah.
So do you guys have a better appreciation for the context on what this kid lived through and the success that he found growing up in that? He's 1 in a million from what he achieved. So the power of his spirit to continue to drive, it's an incredible story, and I hope that you guys read the book. You actually read the book, because it is a life-changing book if you actually stick to his story. And we will be reading it in class for the most part, so if you do not read well outside of school, please come to class. Okay? So what I'm going to need, Grant, what I'm going to need is I'm going to need your notes for every group. I'm going to stand by the door and pass out packets that you need. One is your typical packet that has work for some of your assignments. The other is an FYI packet. So there's going to be things mentioned in the book that you don't understand. That packet has all the information, okay? So there's going to be assignments where you have to annotate that and read that. It's just more historical context, okay? So go ahead and please go get everything ready and turn your notes into the bin. Mark's English.
I'd say Dylan is the best out of our group. Dylan.
I would.
Oh my gosh. I love how my first day of English says. Yeah.
Does anyone not have a packet? Nate? You need a packet? Okay, Lily? Next time.
That would have been fun.
Oops.
Hannah, you left me.
Now I have English.
Oh yeah, you do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but I saw your name on the board. I was like, yes, are you going to save me?
Wait, why was my name on the board?
I don't know. Because we're in English. So it's not the board. I don't like it.
I mean,
it was pretty much like this. So I was in here, but a bunch of others in that chair. He was already like this distance, and I was just like, get away from me.
Guys, you want to walk up to me?
That's pretty good.
Fine, I'll just walk up to Tony.
Elijah, are you in the...
Oh, it's like I did, but it wasn't like here. Let me see your face. What's different?
I was like, cool, why? When I saw this, I didn't say much. I was just like,
Okay.
we just had to go to class.
Yeah, no, technically I saw it yesterday, but I, yeah, it was
It's not the end of classes if my grades so much better.
Do you need a hit? Or a head? I feel like if I were a backpack, that'd be me. Like
kind of ripped up. Not like in a bad way, but just like a little edgy.
Oh, the boy was okay. Can I pre-prep myself a new over?
Is it the fun part?
Yeah.
I need this for school. Like now for English too. Like I feel like at some point it's gonna be like.
It's not that long though.
Yeah, no, it's like not that yeah, something like that. Yeah, but it's like it's just like.
There's like another person.
Oh no, she's gonna have like her name.
She was walking by.
She was a time ago.
I know, but she was nice. Because when she had the names up on the board, she was like, "Are you okay with that?" I was just like, "Did you change? Like, do you want anyone in your group?" I was like, "No, it's fine." I was like, "We talked about like, shouldn't have like for presenting. We had to make a slide. Mine was
Oh, thank God I got out of this class.
education. I mean, the rest isn't that bad. I'm used to it. No, it's not. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think that's hard. I know that right there. Well, we were like in groups. Because if that were the case, I would have been like here. Yeah, for sure. Like, wait. Yeah, because usually sits like in this portion of the house. Yeah, I try to like avoid confrontations. That's what I've also. But then I've also just bitched about it. I've heard a lot of things. Just go in, and then you don't have to worry about it. Tempting. Tempting. Very tempting. Just give me the right thing. Give me the right tool. Even if I moved my shit earlier, she's been like, move.
I haven't moved it myself.
True.
What?
But I'm confused. I'm just like,
Oh yeah. Let's eat.
Oh yeah, wait, you don't even have a lot of history anymore.
I'll do it right now. Just like 2 hours. And then I'm I have nothing to do.
Well, next period. Oh, okay, I was like, because third she isn't here. I was like, wait, hold on.
Mr. Madison extended the date on the stuff until Thursday.
Or not green, gray.
No, you said gray.
But, I know, but it's like you see a green first track, it's like,
Every time everyone should get me, she literally hated me. I woke up at 4. Because she hated me no matter what. The only time that she liked me was when I started saying it, and I was like, I wanted to hope today. I was like, dude, yesterday you were with me at 4. Get it done. And I was like, oh, there's a skill. She was like, shut up.
All the guys
But it's like he had like really bad anger issues. Like he was a really cool guy. But like
it's not that that you do get through it at home.
yeah. Like he was an older dude.
Leanna, Logan?
Yes.
Let's sit down and get to work. Kate and Ava.
It's like,
Let's separate.
like, if you learn your lesson, if you get an F face, that's kind of unfair.
Somebody else?
Oh. Okay, wait, hold on. Before she goes away.
And if something happens to
Ava, you need to run to Discovery.
I do? Right now? I went last year.
I look at it so I get an idea.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that yesterday.
I think it's for trackers.
See if there were a fake baby in the air.
Then she may have already just seen you, but
maybe.
How are you? Oh, I'm good. How are you?
How's your meeting done?
Oh, good. Very good.
Meeting.
I just had that.
hey, I saw something
Miss Anne.
It's one.
Yeah, that's it.
What's the quick word
What
now?
is?
I'm quick word.
There's some more.
Intel.
What is it?
Last looking at that.
Yeah, you have.
Reagan.
Yeah.
I'll be back in 15, and then I will fix it for you.
Okay, thank you.
Callbacks were yesterday.
So, you what?
Callbacks were yesterday. They went off.
So,
Just wonder.
So then you gotta get three important things that shock you, two statistics, and one question. So
We find out through. We're gonna be doing it on their website. But
Also, I want to go get someone a piece of paper. So I had to go get them. But I remember food and water.
move it. Nate, move it.
Thank you. I was just gonna. You didn't bring that back. No, never mind. It's right there. Did you want me to give you? No.
Interesting. Did she show any other pictures of it all done by those different methods?
Just kind of like go past them how they care to do this.
Trash around. Just the bell to be let me astray.
She's like, I didn't do it. She's like, I lived it in the first grade.
You're already there, yeah.
Your fingers first.
Getting coffee.
Getting food.
Oh, sorry.
Held me hostage.
Okay.
Hey, so why'd you throw my stuff?
No one threw it.
Then why'd you push it?
She didn't push it.
Picked it up and put it down.
Why'd you need to touch my stuff?
Hey, you guys.
Doesn't mean you can touch my stuff.
Get to work.
Just because I wasn't here doesn't mean you can touch my stuff.
Hey, can you have a seat?
Sorry, she moved my stuff.
Oh.
Kid, you're a kid too. Alright, I'm gonna make a friend make sure. If you touch my stuff, that's against the law. Actually, it's not.
Have fun.
Actually, I'm not gonna look. That's what I'm saying. Right here. She touched my stuff. I mean,
Okay, over it.
pay to
Let's
go
go.
to the principal. Just pay to go to the principal.
It is. I don't want to be here. No.
That.
No. Don't become another TA for your class.
So
No.
so when you stole that pin from me,
Never mind, technically. What? Pen?
pin. So
Since I helped him.
you stole that pin from me, you were still
begin with is like
I never graded your stuff. I just always put it down. That's what I was mostly needed.
No? Johnny. So then you write on your block, he has you color information.
maybe last. Wait, no.
Oh, wait. You're in
where's Walter? The entirety of the show. Where's Walter? Probably won't be that busy.
What?
You should turn the stripes in your shirt red. Wear some brown glasses and a red hat with a white.
Here's Waldo.
It's where's Walter? What? Just sit down.
Were we supposed to skip ahead past lesson 1, 2, lesson 3, or did he just open them up for us? Madsen, with the coasters. Did he just open like up the game tonight up in case you got there? Yeah. Okay, so you're still supposed to do everything else? Moses here today.
Mr. Madsen is here today, Tommy. If you want to go ask him, you can. I know you guys were doing like that personal inventory. And
No, it's because he got out of there.
And then you're going to be doing one.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a. She said there was like a couple of students that needed.
Do you need to register for Folsom Lake College classes or anything like that? Because you're here to attend.
Hmm?
So with the course forms, since I still haven't done that, you said that I needed to go to you and talk about that. So
Yeah, do you have it?
no,
Okay.
that's like what do we need?
Let's print off one for your, you'll be a senior next year?
Yep.
If I can. I don't want to. to know if our printer's working.
It should be. And also, I know that I have to take these two. I don't have to take any more math. The one I have to do for next year. No, wait. No, that's next year. I have to take Earth. Because I never took that. Okay. So I need to write that down. Yeah. Because Mr. Both? Yeah, because I never took that. Instead I took biology. Yeah, because Mr. Palmer and I, more towards the beginning of the year, like talked about all the classes that I'm going to get to take next year. So it's like that, I need to take ICT. Just, yeah. No, I don't need to take health, just ICT. These are I'm getting back to this year. Yeah. Since, yeah, for some reason my PE was counted as health for professionals. Yeah, I don't know, it's weird. Yeah, because I would do it for first. So that's like a group. So it was then, so I just needed to choose one more elective for spring. Yeah. And then other than that, all of the classes I needed to take are I think I have a copy of it. That's one. Okay.
Everything that you're enrolled in right now